Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see people joining us today for our free 30-minute webinar this afternoon. So we're going to get started and kick off as there's been a real interest in this particular webinar. It seems to be one that has really struck a chord for many of our colleagues in the audience. So without further ado, we're going to start off. Obviously, we want to acknowledge our wonderful, particularly during NAIDOC week, we want to honour the sacred lands in which we live, work and grow, and to listen deeply and learn deeply with our First Nations friends and colleagues. Obviously that is very timely with NAIDOC week this week. It's my great pleasure to introduce our special guest from our sponsor at Prime Super, Carol Keller. And Carol is Member Solutions Manager, Prime Super. I'm sure she'll share a little bit more about herself. But it is an absolute delight to have her back with us today on this very important topic of planning for your retirement. Carol, I'll hand over to you and thank you so much for kindly joining us today.
You're welcome. I'll just share my screen, everyone. So bear with me. Okay, can everyone see that? Is there full screen? Okay. So that's the end of the presentation. I'm sorry. I don't know why it's decided to do that. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing because PowerPoint's just decided not to share. Apologies, everyone.
That's perfectly okay, Carol. It happens to the best of us.
I'm just going to, I'm going to have to reopen the file. But I can talk a little bit about what we're doing today. So basically today is going to be about where you're getting to the pointy end of retirement and where you're looking at what your options are in respect of your super. So there's basically goodness gracious, there's two things you can do in relation to your super. There is, now you've probably got a Okay. There's a transition to retirement income stream, and there is a retirement income stream. Now, before we start, today's information will be general information only. So that means I'm not going to be taking your personal circumstances into account at all. And any information that you might need that's specific to you, you will need to contact your own super fund. And if you do belong to Prime Super, then you'll be able to contact us directly and book a chat and or speak to someone like myself or my team. I'm sorry if you can see all the slides. I can't control the presentation at the moment, and I can't even seem to move between the slide deck. Just a little bit quickly about Prime Super. Prime Super is a small end type super fund. It's not one of the big giants, but it is a profit to member fund. The two things that I see, I am a qualified financial advisor. The two things, if I take my Prime Super hat off for a moment, that I see as different about Prime Super is probably the member service. It's a little bit more personal because of our size. We're a bit more agile. And the second thing is the regional footprint. So we have a lot of people out in the country because that's where our roots came from. So there's a lot of people that will talk to the people in our regional areas, and it's someone that's easily accessible to them, where other super funds tend to be, I guess, focused more on the cities. Now let's get started on transition to retirement pensions. This is where all the important information is. A transition to retirement pension is a specific superannuation product. It's not necessarily about your stage of life. A lot of people get that mixed up. They think, and naturally, that because of the term, it's not necessarily needing to be something that you take up if you drop your hours only. So it's not necessarily about you transitioning. You can use it for three reasons. The only real thing you need to do is reach age 60. And from that point, you can either use it to boost your super while still working part-time. In the traditional sense, the second option where you reduce your hours, so say you go from 5 to 4 days a week and you want to maintain your income, that would be the second reason. And the third reason is you can maintain full time and just take out a transition to retirement pension, or a TTR as I call it, because you need the additional income. An example of that might be if you want to pay down debt or something like that. So they're the three reasons why people take them out. Now, they have specific rules. So, the first thing is that you can't add money to them. That's for any income stream. You can't add money to them once they start. So, what that generally means is if you're taking out or commencing a TTR, you've got to leave your super account open so that you can continue to get contributions from your employer. The second thing is it's still a taxed environment. So, like super, it's tax efficient but not tax free. A TTR investment earnings are taxed at 15%, and the performance rate that you get from your super fund is net of that tax. It's the same as in super. There's another feature about it. Pension payments to you are tax-free. So although you can draw money out, which we call pension payments, tax-free, the investment earnings are still taxed. That's why we call it a taxed environment. And there's some rules around what you can take. So you can only take between 4 and 10% of the balance that's in the TTR at any one time. So there's a minimum age-based payment of 4% and a maximum of 10%. The way it works is that you roll money from your super account to a transition to retirement pension. So you transfer a balance. So just for example, just say we had someone who had 120K in super and they roll 100,000 into a new TTR. That 100,000 means they can take between 4 and 10%, so 4,000 to 10,000 per year in pension payments. So I hope that's helping you understand the way it actually works. They're pretty flexible. You can change the amount that you're paid within the 4 and 10%. You're not locked in for life. So you're not, oh my goodness, I'm stuck with this 4% or whatever it might be forever. You can change it as long as it's between 4 and 10%. And you can shut them down if you don't need them anymore. You're not locked in for life until the account balance exhausts itself. They do remain invested as well, so they will earn money subject to your withdrawals being taken out as well, but do remain invested. The idea behind them is to, I guess, ultimately provide a smooth transition between fully retiring and just starting on the journey. So let's look at some of the basics. By taking an example, so this is John here. Now, John wants to grow his super. He's got 320K in super and he feels like it's probably not enough and he wants to add as much as he can up until age 65 when he plans to retire. So he's 61 and he's earning 65K. This is his take-home pay. Now, I've used the figures based on a calculator that's publicly available. It's called the Industry Super Retirement Calculator, or TTR calculator. You can look it up independently if you wish, or I can send the link around if people need it. It isn't our calculator, but it has estimated the tax. So just a disclaimer there, it's not in our control, this particular calculator. But what it said was, and I haven't had time to independently check this with our financial planning tools, simply because it's so early in the financial year. I will do it at some stage. But the calculator says that he will receive 52,919 in take-home pay. So John can't afford to salary sacrifice to his super to boost it on that take-home pay. So he decides on exploring a transition to retirement strategy. Let's have a look at what that looks like. Alrighty. So don't panic when you see this slide. I'll go through it bit by bit. So on a $65,000 salary, we know that his super contributions, and excuse me if I keep looking down because I like to give real figures to people. So his superannuation contributions are going to be 12% on a, they are for everyone. So that means from his employer, he'll get 7,800 in super contributions paid to his super fund. The current annual cap is 32,500. So John says to himself, if I take away 7,800 from 32,500, I'm left with 24,700. So that's my contributions that I could potentially contribute right up to the cap. Now, as you may or may not be aware, there are other rules where you can contribute beyond the cap, but I'm not going to go into them here. We'll keep it simple with the annual cap of 32,500. So John has worked out what his contribution ability is up until his cap. That's the first step. So he knows what he's got to play with if he could potentially contribute. The second step is to look at a TTR. So he thinks to himself, okay, I need to roll over an amount into a TTR. We know he's got through $320,000, and if he was a Prime Super member, he'd have to leave $6,000 in his super account. That's the minimum that we require people to keep in their super accounts to keep it open. Avoids other legislation too. There is a reason for it, which I won't go into it. So he's got 314,000 he could transfer to a TTR. Once he works out the 314,000, that's my ability, he knows he can contribute or receive in pension payments between 4 and 10%. And that works out to be 12,560 and of course 31,400. So he can take pension payments between those two figures each financial year. The third step, so he's worked out what his contribution ability is. He's worked out what a TTR pension payment could look like and the range between it. The third step is to then either seek some personal advice through a financial advisor. Someone like myself, for example, you can get limited super advice through super funds. We call it intra-fund advice. It's specific to the super fund. Or you can use the industry calculator that I've given the reference for in that small writing there. It's called a TTR calculator. And if you pop in some of the figures around your income and your balance and stuff, it'll work out for you what the sweet spot is, basically. So John selects one of those options and he works out that if he transferred 314,000 to a pension and then took 16,966 in pension payments, he would still maintain the same take-home pay if he then salary sacrificed 24,700 right up to the cap of 32,500. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, the reason why it works is because you're taking pension payments and pension and income stream, by the way, are the same sort of term. So I'll use them interchangeably if you've been wondering. You can take pension payments tax-free. So that contributes to his income, but by salary sacrificing so much, he's lowering his taxable income at the other end. So he's reducing the amount of tax he can pay. Or he needs to pay. So that's the reason why this strategy works. And it actually saves him about nearly 4,030 in tax every single year, assuming things remain the same. And by the time he reaches 65, and allowing for the fact that superannuation contributions are taxed at 15%, he ends up with nearly an extra 17,000 in his account when he retires at 65. So it is a really good strategy to at least consider. There are some things to think about, though. Doesn't suit everyone. Just to give you an example, anyone who's salary sacrificing comfortably, you're creating a complex situation to do something that you would have done anyway. So that's not going to work. There's also some situations where people's income is such that salary sacrificing a large amount like this won't work because superannuation is still taxed at 15%. So you don't want to be in a position where your tax outcome is suboptimal because of that very fact of tax being taken out in super. The third thing is you've got to be aware of the cont limits, the contribution limits. So for concessional contributions, which is your salary sacrifice and your employer contributions, the annual cap is 32,000. If your super balance is less than 500,000, you may be able, at the last 30 June, you may be able to add in more, but you are restricted by the contribution limits. So if you happen to be a really high income earner, it could be that your normal employer contributions, or even if they pay more than 12%, and some employers do, that you may be so close to the cap anyway that it doesn't leave you a lot of room to move. So they're just some of the reasons off the top of my head why this might not work for people. It is not set and forget. If your circumstances change or you don't monitor where you are sitting in relation to the caps and your salary and the tax outcome, it can fall over very quickly. And there is legislative risk, I guess. The fact that suddenly this could be taken away by the government. They do like to change rules now and again if they have a particular outcome that they want to achieve somewhere else. And look, and this is only a minor issue, but I'll mention it here. There is a degree of market timing risk. So as you would have noticed from here, there is a situation where you're taking money out of super and there will be a gap before it goes back in via salary sacrifice because that'll be in accordance with your pay, which may be actually a different cycle. So what's happening in investment markets over that time may make a difference. It's probably not likely to with pension payments and contributions being regular. It should sort itself out, but it still is a risk to be thought about at least at one point or another. All right, I hope I haven't blown your heads with that strategy. The main thing is to, I guess, ask questions of your super fund. We're happy to chat to people about it if they're interested in joining a fund. And like I said, we do offer personal advice in relation to this issue if you are a Prime Super member. All righty, let's look at income streams, as in retirement income streams. Now, TTRs are for people who have hit 60 but haven't met a condition for full release of their super yet. So they've just hit 60, that's it. They haven't left an employer, they haven't retired, they haven't reached age 65. By contrast, a retirement income stream is not necessarily for someone who's retired, but for someone who has met a condition of release, a full condition of release. And these are reaching age 60, obviously, that's the case for all of them, retiring after age 60, leaving an employer after age 60, so you don't need to retire to take up a retirement income stream, or reaching age 65. It doesn't matter if you're working or not when you reach age 65, or whether even you've gone back to work after you've left an employer. The main thing is that you've met one of those conditions for full access to your super, and then you're eligible to start a retirement income stream. Now, why would you do that? Well, there are some things to think about. The first thing is the environment is completely tax-free. So unlike a TTR where the investment earnings are taxed at 15%, investment earnings on retirement income streams are completely tax-free. So what that means is that for the same investment option in a TTR or a super account versus a retirement income stream, their long-term returns tend to be better because even though they're invested the same way, there's no tax being set aside and paid to the tax man. So that's one reason. The second reason is quite often people are, I guess, reducing their work hours or coming up with different options. They may actually retire or provide you with a regular source of income, but the money remains invested. And that's always a plus. Taking it out of the retirement system or the superannuation system in general can be problematic unless you give a bit of thought to it, simply because you can't always get it back in if you change your mind or circumstances change. It becomes a contribution and you're bound by the contribution rules. They're really flexible. I really like them, to be honest. You can change you've still got the requirement of the age-based minimum payment, and it does go up from 4%. So it's 5% from age 65 to 74, then it becomes 6%, and it goes up gradually. But other than that one requirement, you can take as much as you want. So you can vary the pension payment however you want, subject to receiving a minimum payment. You can take lump sums. So, unlike a TTR, if you want to go on a holiday or get a new car or something like that, you can take a lump sum from it. And it's pretty easy to do. The money still remains invested, as I said. And the idea behind it is it forms part of your income in retirement. It doesn't have to be your whole income. You may receive, when you reach age 67, the age pension, in which case you draw less down on your super income stream or pension and supplement with the age pension together. Those two will meet your cash flow needs. So it's kind of a nice thing. Now let's look at a practical example. So this is Sue. She's in better nick than John because she hasn't got a little pot belly. She's been at the gym. But she's got 500K in her super. So the only real rule is that she must draw down 20K per year, and that's 4% because she's actually age 64. It will go up to 5% next year when she's 65, but other than that, she can take what she needs. She still has the restrictions on income streams in the sense that she can't add money to it once she starts it. But there are different ways of getting money into an income stream if you need it later on. So you don't need to panic and leave it till the absolute last minute when you're confident no contributions need to come in. And they can work like a TTR if you haven't retired. So you leave your super account open and you draw money down from a retirement income stream instead of a TTR. So they can work that way too. You can also work them for a pension recontribution strategy as well. It is not really dependent on being in a TTR. The only thing is after age 67, you've got to meet a work test to be able to salary sacrifice. So that's how they work in general. They're a separate account. You need a super account open if you make contributions or are receiving contributions and you're still working. They're really flexible. You can close them at any time if you don't need them, but you must receive an age-based minimum. And if you've got a TTR, it would be bound by the maximum as well. You can't take lump sums from a TTR, but you can from a retirement income stream. And which income stream you qualify for depends on the conditions of release. That is, you must have reached age 60 for both of them. If you haven't left your current employer, it's a TTR only, unless you're 65. But for a retirement income stream, you need to have left an employer after age 60, retired, or reached age 65. So they're quite specific rules. Now let's just look briefly at some practicalities. How to open one. You don't need to worry well, at least not as far as Prime Super goes. You don't need 6 months lead time. Most people do like to talk to us a bit beforehand, just from personal experience. But typically, your fund would only need about a month's notice. If you're going to close your super account, so just say you're retiring, please wait till the final contribution comes in. That timing's really important because if you close your super account and start a new income stream, you've retired, this is your drawdown account, but your employer hasn't paid the last contribution, they'll have nowhere to put it. So timing can be important. With Prime Super, we generally like the applications in at the beginning of the month that they're due to start. And I'd imagine most super funds would have similar rules. You can either apply online or you can complete a form. Like I said, they're really flexible. You should be able to close them at any time if they no longer serve you and change the amounts that you're being paid subject to those rules I mentioned earlier. Those rules are legislative. So they're not something that's going to be different by super funds. Don't forget your minimums and maximums. Always revisit your circumstances when you do start one. If things change, relook at whether the income stream still works for you. Always read your PDS, the product disclosure statement, because that tells you the extra information. I can rattle off pretty easily how Prime Super works, but different funds work differently. Don't forget one main thing, the age pension. Now, a lot of you may choose to start a TTR or a retirement income stream well before age 67. And if you do, that's great. But just pop in the back of your mind that the age pension is age 67. It's not 65, it's 67. And the thing I'd like you to really keep in mind is that if you think you might be eligible or would like to look into it, make it sooner rather than later. So around age 67. The reason I say that is that Centrelink do not backdate age pension payments. So I've had situations in the past where someone might be working and just say they're 72 and they're working 1 or 2 days a week. They've automatically assumed, oh, I'm not eligible for the age pension because I'm still working. It turned out they were eligible for a part pension, but they've missed out on 5 years of part pension payments because Centrelink don't backdate. So just keeping that in mind and reviewing it as you approach age 67 and then periodically after that can be a good idea. Now, who to contact? Your super fund's your best source of knowledge, really. They know their product. They'll often have a service offering. If it's Prime Super, I can tell you all about that. We've got both the call centre and advisors in part of the member solutions team that can offer advice if you need it, including either general and or personal advice. A lot of super funds will have a similar sort of structure. So get in touch with the right people and start asking the questions around how they work for that particular fund, particularly around the operations of it and any things that might be different to super that aren't legislative. So, for example, some super funds may charge an extra fee, for example, for an income stream. You'd want to be aware of that. That information will be in the product disclosure statement. And some of them have different investment options for an income stream. Again, you'd want to be aware of that because you'll need to look at what will work for you best. Okay, now this is just a really little summary to remind you to do some stuff. Don't forget to always log into your account. Please don't do it daily. That's usually a super fund's nightmare because superannuation is a long-term investment. But do keep in touch with your account. It's important that you know what's going on and keep your details up to date, particularly as you reach age 65. There is legislation that kicks in at 65 where if we don't hear from you as a super fund for a couple of years, we start to worry about whether you are still there and we have to try and actively engage you. Now, it's better if we don't have to, simply because if we have trouble, there can be issues keeping your account active. So stay in touch with your super fund. Make use of the calculators and the information on the website. So Prime Super's got some, as you'd imagine, in a retirement hub. You want to make use of the resources that you've got available and book a chat or an appointment with a specialist just to get the lowdown of what they can do and their unique timings for your super fund. And the same, obviously, if you're a Prime Super member. I think that covers it pretty much. I'm sorry if we had a few technical issues, and I'm sorry about the format of the screen today. It's all seemed to morph. We tested it beforehand, and it was working fine. So I do apologise. I hope it hasn't created too many issues for anyone. And I don't know, hand over to you, Rachel and or Marnie.
Thank you, Carol. That's absolutely fantastic. And look, despite they're minor things, the technical things, they happen to the best of us. So the content and the way that you describe things, which are superannuation is a complex set of factors. Carol, you're always amazing the way that you describe and explain things in language that I think we can kind of get more of an understanding and grasp so much better. I just want to say thank you very much. Unfortunately, with this one, because it is a free webinar and it's very short, we don't have times for questions. But this webinar is recorded, so you can go back and we'll send you a link to say when it's ready in a couple of days, so you can watch it on demand again. Reach out to the team at Prime Super if you are looking to, refresh or revise your super options. And if you're interested in another webinar that Carol kindly did for us, we've got another one on the website, which was, I think, last year, and that was around addressing the gender savings gap. So wonderful support from Prime Super. Thank you so much, Carol. Thanks to everyone who attended. It was wonderful to have such a great, response to this particular topic, and we wish you well. Thank you so much for attending today.